The Illuminate Arts and Faith Conference in Chattanooga, Tennessee wants to help you find your tribe. Do you get way too excited about quoting Wendell Berry or C.S. Lewis in conversations with coworkers? Does your Spotify playlist include hymns, a little jazz, and a whole lot of Andrew Peterson? Join your tribe at Illuminate March 31 and April 1 for education and inspiration from speakers Russ Ramsey, Douglas McKelvey, John Hendricks, and others. Find a complete list of session topics and ticket information at southern.edu/illuminate.
In 2024, I set out to meet as many poets as I could and spend an hour with each one. I got more than I bargained for, more insight, more clarity, more hope. It's proved to be one of the richest highlights of my life. 17 writers, 17 deeply human conversations that made me sit up and pay attention. Franz Kafka once said, if the book we're reading doesn't wake us up with a blow to the head, what are we reading for? A book must be the axe for the frozen sea within us. And that's what I hope this new book will do. I hope it wakes us up, my friends. I hope these conversations will be the catalyst for something to be reawakened, re-enchanted, and reinvigorated. It's called An Axe for the Frozen Sea, Conversations with Poets About What Matters Most. I'm Ben Palpin, and I hope you'll come and listen in as I spend a little time with poets like Lucy Shaw, Malcolm Guite, Dana Gioia, and Lee Young Lee. Pull up a chair at the table as we dig into what it means to write well and to live well. An Axe for the Frozen Sea is now available from Rabbit Room Press. Visit the store at rabbitroom.com, or better yet, ask about it at your favorite bookseller.
Our needs can be an open door into deeper fellowship between the person that we invite to step into it with us.
Welcome to the Habit Podcast, conversations with writers about writing. I'm Jonathan Rogers, your host. In 2016, Kevan Chandler and a few of his friends took a trip across Europe. Kevan's friends carried him, literally. Kevan has spinal muscular atrophy type 2, a disease that renders him unable to walk. But Kevan left his wheelchair behind and his friends carried him in a specially designed backpack, giving him access to many more places than a wheelchair could go. Kevan has told the story of that remarkable trip in a memoir called We Carry Kevan, and now in a picture book with the same title. Besides being a writer and a world traveler, Kevan Chandler heads up an organization called We Carry Kevan, which fosters a culture of creative accessibility by collaborating with families with disabilities around the world, sharing Kevan's story to encourage and inspire, distributing specially designed carrier backpacks, and having ongoing conversations about friendship and new ideas for customized access. Kevan is an absolute delight. It was my pleasure to reconnect with him for this conversation. Kevan Chandler, so happy to have you on the Habit Podcast today. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you have a new picture book out. It's called We Carry Kevan, the same name as your organization that we'll talk about later. But We Carry Kevan tells the same story in picture book form that you told in a memoir called The View from Here, My Journey as a Backpack. So let's talk about it. Give me when you give the short version of what these books are about or what your work is about, tell me what that short version is. Give me your elevator pitch.
Oh, man. So usually if people have no idea what I do or what I have done, the elevator pitch is in 2016, some friends and I went to Europe and we left my wheelchair at home, which I use all the time. And we made a special backpack for them to carry me for 3 weeks in Europe. And we got to dance in the streets of Paris and hop over fences in the English countryside, and ended up climbing a mountain to a monastery off the coast of Ireland, and just got to do whatever we wanted to do, regardless of what the world deemed handicap accessible. And so from there, when we got home, we had families from all over the world asking two questions: where did you get this backpack, and where did you get these friends? And so we've spent the past I guess, 7 years trying to answer those questions.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you kind of skipped a step. It was implied, but you can't walk.
Right. Yeah. So I have a disease called spinal muscular atrophy, which basically means that the message from my brain to my spinal cord gets a bit glitchy. And so as a result, my muscles atrophy over time. And so they grow weaker as I grow older.
Yeah. And so you saw the world from a backpack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy to be taller than I ever imagined I could be. And my wife likes to point out to me that I seem to find the tallest friends. So I'm even taller than the normal person would be. But yeah, it was great. It started with we wanted to explore the sewers in our hometown, and we decided that we couldn't take a wheelchair in the sewers. So we made a backpack that was good enough for one night, and did that, and came out of that saying,
"We who?" When you say "we," who's we?
Oh, yeah. So there's a couple guys that ended up going to Europe with me, Tom and Philip, and then a couple other guys that we were friends with in North Carolina through the music scene. A bunch of us played in bands and knew each other that way, and so that's where it started. And then the trip to Europe, we had a friend in Indiana and another friend who lives in a different state every other month. So I don't know where he's from.
Yeah. When you, my first thought when you said you wanted to explore sewers is, did you not bump your head doing that?
We almost did, especially because sewers range in size and shape, and some of them we could walk through, without even ducking, and then there were some that the guys had to crawl on their knees. And with that backpack, I had my back to their back, so I was faced backwards, and so my nose was right at the concrete, and somehow we managed to not kill me. So we figured out, what else could we do? What other adventures could we try to survive?
Wow.
We've been going ever since.
All right. So as I said, what year was it that The View from Here came out?
Yeah. So when we got back from Europe, I basically dove right away writing that book, and we self-published it as The View from Here, and we released a documentary with the same name. But then when the publisher picked it up, they said, no, you need to call it We Carry Kevan. So now everything is called We Carry Kevan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'd forgotten that there was the intermediate version.
Yeah,
not intermediate, but there's a second version. I'd completely forgotten about that until right now.
And we're actually currently rebranding the documentary to be also called We Carry Kevan. So we're just trying to make it as easy as possible and call everything We Carry Kevan. So.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so
but yeah, so that was I wrote it in 2016, and then it got picked up by a publisher it got published in 2019.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, we're going to get to the question of where'd you get this backpack? Tell me about that other question. Where do you get these friends? Where do you get friends like this who will carry you? We're used to the idea of, our friends carry us in a metaphorical sense. You're talking about in a literal sense and also a metaphorical sense. Friends who carry you.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the bigger and harder question to answer that I don't feel like I have, a rote answer. I've actually tried multiple times to write books about it, and I don't have the 5 steps to making these kinds of friends. But what I have found is that the Lord has put in my life these awesome guys who love Jesus and from that is an outpouring of wanting to care for me and allowing me to care for them as well. And so I think that's a big part of it, is recognizing that they're not just doing this as a charity or a gift to me, but we went to Europe because we were friends and we just wanted to have fun together, and we realized this is how it had to happen, and so I think that says a lot about who they are, and I recognize that that's a unique trait in people. But well, you've carried me. You know how
I have. It's heavy. You're heavy.
Yeah. And so for them to say, no, I want to do this. I remember when we were testing out the backpack for Europe, Tom, one of the main guys, we kind of did some designs, and then we put me in it and went for a walk and came back, and it was his first time carrying me. And we got back, and I could tell that he was worn out. It had really worked on him. And I thought for a split second, I was like, oh no, we're not going to do this, are we? And so I said, Tom, are you okay? And he said, yeah, I think I just need to start working out more. Yeah. It wasn't really whether we're going to do this or not. It's how are we going to do it? And so, I was, this may be a slight branch off or tangent, but my wife and I were talking this weekend about when the man was lowered through the roof and Jesus healed him, and he asked the Pharisees that question of what's easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or take up your mat and walk. And we were talking this weekend about how isn't that the question? It's a rhetorical question, right? Like there's not really a good answer on this side of eternity to get to that. Both are impossible for us to quantify. But isn't that the same question that we should be asking ourselves? Is, do we take care of someone bodily, or do we take care of someone spiritually and emotionally? We're not supposed to choose between the two. We're supposed to do both, because Jesus did both, and we're supposed to do what Jesus did. And so I think that kind of gets to the core of these friendships, and that gives them a responsibility and me a responsibility to pour into one another, whether it's spiritually or physically or emotionally, and care for one another. Yeah,
well, I was thinking about, you mentioned that I one time carried you not very far, maybe a quarter of a mile, and it was very tiring. And in that moment, I was thinking, how do these guys carry Kevan around Europe? But then I also realized once you start doing it, you get stronger. And I feel like there's something significant there that once we do begin to bear one another's burdens, we get a little better at bearing one another's burdens and stronger. And
we exercise those muscles, and it becomes more habitual, more natural.
Yeah.
On the Habit Podcast.
There you go. Yes, that's right. It's all about habit. Okay, so you're wearing a shirt right now that says redefining accessibility.
I
want to hear more about that. Yeah, you redefined accessibility. That has to do with, it's not just Kevan being more independent. It's Kevan leaning into dependence. I don't know. Help me say this right. How do you talk about this?
Yeah. So the elevator pitch summary of redefining accessibility, which is kind of the tagline for the nonprofit, is this idea that ramps and automatic doors and elevators are all great things, but we need to get back to the core of accessibility, which is people helping people. because even those things were invented by someone to help someone, right? So I think we've gotten away in some regards. We've gotten away from the heart of it, of people doing those things because of relationship. And there's a pub here in Fort Wayne that their whole restaurant is available to me, accessibility wise, but the front patio has like a 3-inch step down. And I asked them once I said, hey, could I bring a piece of plywood to, if I ever wanted to sit out there? And they said, no, we're actually going to buy a ramp and put it in there because you're a regular and we love you and we care for you. So we want our whole place to be accessible to you. By ADA standards, they didn't have to do that, but because of the relationship and the heart, they wanted to. And so, I think when we get back to relationship and caring for one another, then we get more creative and we're willing to go the extra mile, as it were.
Yeah, man, I love that language of we get more creative because of relationship, because of love and friendship.
Yeah, and I'm working on, and we can talk about this some other time, but I'm working on a new book that talks about not just inviting people into your need, but inviting people to step with you into your need.
What's the difference?
The difference is between asking for help and recognizing that you are going to participate in that as well. So I'm not just the receiver, but I'm a contributor as well. And so realizing that our needs can be an open door into deeper fellowship between the person that we invite to step into it with us.
That's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And again, not just relevant to somebody with a particular physical need like you have, but to all of us.
All of us. Yeah. The idea came from, a lot of finding it in scripture, this idea of serving one another and not, I don't see a caveat of serve one another unless your need is greater. And so realizing maybe we're supposed to serve one another, not in spite of our needs, but through them. And so an example would be that I have different guys come and get me up every morning. But that's an opportunity for, if I'm present in that time, it affords them an opportunity to also be present and to have kind of this quieter moment in their day. It gives them a rhythm, and it also gives them, for a lot of them, kind of a downtime in an otherwise busy cell phone and email and, running around day. They get about an hour to just be in one spot and be present. So that's a way that I can care for them.
Yeah. And there's no way to digitize or abstract that moment, right? There's no app for that.
Right.
There's no app for getting Kevin out of bed.
Right. You have to be entirely present or I end up on the floor. So.
Yeah. So you know a lot about collaboration. Right? I mean, your trip to Europe was very much a collaboration. Yeah. So much of what you do is collaborative. These books that you've worked on have very much been collaborative.
Yeah. Not even intentionally, I would say, because back in the day, when I was in college and after college, I started writing my own books, and I say that like I wrote other people's. I started writing books and self-publishing, and I had one friend that helped with it, but it was really me in the corner typing away. And I, when we went to Europe, Pete Peterson said, "Hey, if you write a book about this, I'll edit it. I'll work on it with you." And if Pete gives that offer, you take it. So so that really, I think, launched me into this idea of working with other people on these sort of creative endeavors. And I used to play music, play in bands, and work with other bands, and so I was used to collaborating in that sense. But I remember a couple of years ago, kind of hanging up on the clothesline of prayer of like, Lord, what does it look like to write and collaborate? Because it can be a lonely endeavor. Even the most collaborative, at some point you have to sit down and do the writing. And so, so I kind of asked him that, and then just left it out there hanging up for him to answer. And I feel like he has, just through experience with Pete and with others, and then with the new book, the picture book. Obviously, we needed an illustrator, and so that was a whole new understanding for me, because you have to convey through words what you want an artist to do, but also give them freedom to do it the way that they want to, and hope that it's a good balance between your vision and their vision. And until then, I had any book covers or artwork I had done with my brother, and so we grew up together, so it was pretty easy. But working with someone new, Natalie Peterson, was just incredible to work with, and really fun. And
she did a great job of the pictures in this.
She did. It's so great. Anytime people see it, they open it and they like back away with awe at the vibrant colors and the characters. But then we had Jennifer, Pete's wife, Jennifer Trafton, was kind of the coach of the whole project, and worked with me on the writing and honing the story, and then also worked with Natalie, and especially worked with me on how to convey to Natalie what we were thinking. It was great.
So I'd love to hear about that process of going from a memoir for grown-ups to translating those ideas. I mean, this picture book is something like 200 words, 300 words?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's 32 pages, something like that.
That's not many words.
It's not.
So tell me about that. How do you? I just want to hear about that process.
Yeah, it was an interesting process, because throughout the memoir, there's all these different themes. There's the overall. When I wrote it, I decided I'm just going to write the events, and that's where I'm going to start. And then by the end of the chapters, we'll see where I end up as far as my internal dialogue and thoughts and things. And so with that, I didn't really go in with an agenda of what the book would be. So I think it is cohesive, but it's a lot of different kind of themes and ideas throughout. And so the idea of what do we pick and choose to include in this kind of short form version? And I've actually seen that in, have you ever read Peter Pan, the original book? No. So it's a awesome book, but it's funny because every play and movie and comic book and spin-off series that people write, it always focuses on like just a little corner of the whole story. And so I felt like we had to do the same thing and say, okay, what little blip do we want to focus in on? And I even entertained the idea at one point of doing 3 different picture books, one for each country that we went to. And Jennifer said, no, I think we need to do one book. We need to do it right. We just really need to sharpen it. And so there were a lot of different versions. We wrote versions that had far more than 200 words, and covered a lot more ground. And then we rewrote those, and then we whittled it down, and eventually what we decided, because I wanted, we wanted to publish this, but I thought this would be great to include in every backpack that we give away and or sell, or every backpack we distribute, which this past weekend we delivered number 1,000. So that's been pretty cool to experience. But we want to put it in every box that we send out with a backpack. And so Jennifer kind of threw out the idea of, well, what if the focus of this book was your fears or hesitations about being in the backpack? She said, have you ever had any? I said, oh, yeah. And I just rattled some off. I said, well, like when we're in the woods and, I see a branch coming up, are the guys going to remember to duck? Or I've never walked on my own 2 feet. I don't know how that works. What if they trip? Or, I'm amazed that people don't trip every other step. It's just baffling to me. And then when we were hiking on Skellig Michael to go to the monastery, there were moments when I thought, we're going to fall right off the side of this thing and end up in the ocean. And that's going to be really cold if we're still alive, and so
that's a great picture, by the way, where y'all are being blown off the cliff. Natalie did a great job illustrating that, sort of illustrating your fear in that moment.
Yeah. And so we thought, well, how do we take these concerns? Because kids are probably going to have them too. Mm-hmm. You're taller than you ever have been before. You're not in control. Mm-hmm. What do you do with that? And I was recently, I wish I could say this inspired the book, but it just affirmed it because we had already written the book. But we were at a conference recently, and a family was trying out the backpack, and the little girl was kind of nervous about it. She was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and they got her in it, but it was still on the floor, and she was like, I don't know, Dad, I don't know. Wow. And just then, this little 5-year-old boy who has a backpack and has used it a lot, he and his family were there. And so my wife, Katie, said, hey, do you mind talking to her for a minute? And so he wheeled his chair up to her and said, don't worry, it's scary at first, but then it's a lot of fun. And so it's like, oh, probably a lot of these kids have that concern, because you are giving up your independence entirely. But what you're trading it for is not just the ability to go places you couldn't, but to experience relationship and friendship in a new and deeper way. And so that became the focus of the book, was here are these concerns that you might have. And we wrote it so that in the third person, so that parents could read it to the child, mm-hmm. and be speaking it over them. I think that's a powerful thing about reading aloud, is that whatever you're reading to someone, you're really speaking it over them. You're speaking it to them. And so it became this, here are some concerns you might have. I understand that. I want to acknowledge that. But here's what happens when you trust people. Here's what can happen, this beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. And so we realized it's really a story about courage and trust and being trustworthy. And so that's kind of where we ended up with the story.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. A story, getting that backpack. I know it's hard to carry the backpack, but getting in it, you're having to really put a lot of trust in people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And people ask me a lot, like, what was it like leaving your wheelchair behind and using the backpack? And really, I mean, we had a plane to catch. I didn't have time to think about, leave. I didn't say bye to my wheelchair and have the, movie moment of, the strings quartet and everything. But it didn't hit me until about a week and a half into the trip, because we were in London, and London, let's say on a sunny day, London is pretty accessible. And I was like, oh, if I had my wheelchair, I could go off and do this thing on my own, or this thing. And that's when I realized that I didn't trade one thing for a better thing or vice versa. It was just one experience for another. Both are great. Both are both create accessibility, just in different ways.
Yeah. There's a moment in the picture book. I can't put my finger on why it seems like such a special moment in the book. Maybe you can say more about it. When your friends put you down to be by yourself, there's a moment where, you just said it's in third person. So Kevan is, it's the only spread in the whole book where you're by yourself.
Yeah.
And of course that is from a real moment in your trip. Can you tell me about that and help me understand why that is such a, I don't know what, moving or engaging moment in that little picture book?
Yeah. Well, and the grown-up memoir, I still don't know what to call it compared to children's picture book. The grown-up book, adult book, I don't know. Yeah. But it delves deeper into it, that I was on Tom's back, and we were hiking through the English countryside. What we thought was going to be like a mile ended up being 6 miles. Oh. And we came up to this hill, kind of crested this hill, and Tom said, this will do. And I just thought he meant, this is a great view. Let's hang out here for a minute. But what he meant was he was referring to a conversation that we had several months before that, when I said, we were driving on a highway, probably through Ohio or something, and where there's lots of open fields. Mm-hmm. And I said, if I was able to drive, I would never get anywhere, because when I got to fields like this, I would pull over and run out in the middle of the field and just stand there. And it would be the ground below and the sky above, and me and God in the middle. And he remembered that, even beyond me remembering that. Uh-huh. And so when we got to the top of this hill, he said, this will do. And he took me off his back and set me on the ground and said, we're gonna go for a bit. There's a fence back here I want to go sit on, and we'll be back. And to this day, I don't know how long they were gone. It might have been 5 minutes. It might have been a half hour. But he gave me the gift of being somewhere that I would never otherwise have been on my own. But he got me there, and then he put me down to be on my own, just for a little bit. And so I guess maybe that comes through so clearly. Like you said, it's almost like I don't know if this is the right word, but almost a stark difference from the rest of the communal book. You have this spread of Kevan by himself in the backpack. Yeah. And it's almost like your brain goes, wait, that shouldn't be that doesn't work. But then a fun kind of side note on that is when that happened in real life, our filmmaker, because we had a friend that came with us to film the whole 3 weeks that we were in Europe. He had gone on the hike with us. But like I said, it was 6 miles, and about a mile or two in, he decided, I've got what I need. I mean, it's a hike. What's going to happen? And he had gotten some great footage, and that's in the documentary. But then he had headed back to do some editing and stuff like that. And so we didn't have any sort of visual representation of that moment. And so I had sent Natalie some descriptions, and I think I sent her what I wrote in the book, and she, I think I think the Holy Spirit inspired her that she made a visual representation that really is almost exactly what we experienced, and so that was a cool gift as well.
Yeah. I guess I was so struck by the sensitivity of your friends. Just on one hand, this incredible generosity for them to carry you, but then also that sensitivity to say, and we're also going to let you be alone for a little while.
Yeah.
And that was something, without your chair, you didn't have the option of getting off by yourself.
Right. Well, and even with my chair in that setting, it would never have got up there. And I think it brings a sense of dignity that, and it shows that they weren't just, like we said earlier, they weren't just doing this as a caregiving thing, but it was because we were friends, and because we were friends, we paid attention to each other. We knew what our desires were, and we acknowledged those and made those happen as best we could.
Yeah. And your perspective on the world, it seems to me, when you're saying, if I could, I would go sit by myself in a field. That's the kind of perspective that your friends probably would take for granted, the need, the value of being alone. So you brought that to them. You gave them something that they didn't have access to without you.
Giving them a chance to recognize and kind of focus in on aspects of life that they wouldn't otherwise know.
Yeah. Okay, I should have asked you about this sooner because it might have helped some things go better earlier in the conversation. You, the We Carry Kevan organization, you are making these backpacks available to mostly children. Is it mostly children? I assume it's mostly children, but adults too.
Yeah. We were trying to do the math the other day. It's probably like 85 to 90% children between the ages of 4 and 12 with various disabilities. The range is crazy to me, but that typically is kind of the backpack has a weight capacity, and so that age range typically, especially with the disease, kind of falls into that weight capacity. And so we have kids with spina bifida and cerebral palsy and spinal muscular atrophy, like I have, and then several rare diseases where there's anywhere from 10 to 20 people in the world that have the disease.
Wow.
But and so when we got back from Europe, we had worked with a company called Deuter out of their U.S. office is in Colorado, and they've been making backpacks and they've been making backpacks for about 150 years.
Really?
And they've been making kid carriers for like toddlers for, I don't know, probably 40 or 50 years. And so we had worked with them to develop our backpack. And so when we got home from Europe, we sent them what we had done in my parents' kitchen, and they made a factory version and tested it and certified it and everything. And then started mass producing it for us. And so that's what we've been distributing around the world ever since. And as I mentioned earlier, we just delivered our number 1,000 over the weekend. And we are currently in 44 countries.
Really?
Yeah, and it's all word of mouth. It's all just families trying it out
Amazing.
and then sharing it with their friends. And so,
And so
yeah.
I'm sure this is a pretty expensive backpack. I should think it'd be
Yeah.
So you have people who donate to help defray the cost. I mean, are you giving these backpacks away to families or?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix. So we have the option for families to just buy it outright because some want to and can. We also, so I'm in a wheelchair and so is my sister. So we grew up very much being aware of, I don't know what you call it, the disability tax, maybe like the pink tax. And like a used wheelchair van that's 10 years old is going to cost about as much as a brand new regular van, and there's just costs are astronomical. And so when we started developing this backpack, I said, one thing I know is I want it to be comparable to what a normal family would pay for a normal child carrier. Because a lot of these families did use, the Deuter kid carrier, and then they outgrew it, so they need to move to ours, and so why charge them double or triple? So it's pretty comparable. It's $450 plus shipping.
Okay.
To ship overseas can double that pretty quick. So that's where it gets expensive. So we have the option for people to buy it, but also we have a program. It's on our website called the causes page. And so if a family wants a backpack, we give them the option to have a fundraiser through our website.
Okay.
And so they can share it with their community, and we can also share it with ours. And that kind of goes back to answering the question of where did you get these friends? Because so much of that is interaction and putting yourself out there. And so we thought, well, this is a fun ask. This is a fun need to invite people into. And so, rather than saying, can you take me to the doctor or help me with the restroom? Let's start with the question of, can you help me get this backpack so I can go hiking? And then those, the need is made aware to the community around you. And hopefully that's an icebreaker for people to then say, oh, when you use it, could we come? Could we be a part of this? And, or what else can we do? And develop a relationship. And so, so we started that actually right about a year ago, and I've really been thrilled with how the causes have been going.
Yeah, good. So a lot of people have taken advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, it's a growing amount that take advantage of that. So we're thankful for that.
That's great. Yeah. I love the way you're making it, giving people opportunities to connect.
Yeah,
and to be creative and to love one another. So
just trying to give the opportunity and let people go from there.
Yeah. What are some other ways? This is my last question. What are some other ways that people can get involved in We Carry Kevan and or the kind of issues that you're interested in?
Yeah. Well, I would say, and actually at the back of the children's picture book, we have a whole list of ways that people can get involved and talks more about the nonprofit. And it's up for pre-order on our website now, so people can check that out. But as far as getting involved, I think the causes page is a great place to start, because you have individual families on there, but you also have other ministries and nonprofits and support groups that are starting to say, hey, we want to do a cause for 5 backpacks or 10 backpacks. We're actually we are getting ready to send 25 backpacks to Ethiopia with the ministry. And so I think that's a great place to start, because you can give to that, or you can just share it with your community. And if you give to it, then you get updates from that specific profile. Once they get the backpack, you get pictures and stuff. And so it's just such an easy and fun way to connect and build a relationship with people. And then we have other ways for people to give on the website. They can check that out. But I would say, yeah, the causes is a good place to start. And then as far as in general, with the whole idea that we're working with and trying to promote of redefining accessibility as a cooperative effort of people helping people. I think, just paying attention to the world around you, paying attention to the people around you, and offering the dignity of a, hey, how's it going? Or a high five, or holding the door open. And, just the simple love of Jesus through those things, and then being open to what he might do through that, opening the door for someone may lead to a lifelong friendship. We'll see. But we have to be open and available for those things. So,
Well, Kevan Chandler, it's always such a pleasure to talk to you, and I love your perspective on things, and so thanks for your wisdom. Thanks for this work that you're doing. You're doing good things. So thanks for being here.
Thanks.
This podcast is brought to you by The Rabbit Room, where art nourishes community and community nourishes art. And all our podcasts are made possible by the generous support of our members. To learn more about us, visit rabbitroom.com, and to become a member, rabbitroom.com/donate.
If you've enjoyed this podcast episode, consider joining the Rabbit Room membership. Your membership helps sustain this community, funding everything from publishing and podcasts and theater productions to events and programs that support artists who create with a Christ-centered vision. We'd love to have you on board. Learn more at rabbitroom.com/member.